Before we begin, a little history. Up until the mid-1980s and well into the 1990s, most small public accounting firms used columnar paper and electronic calculators to prepare their year-end files. Pads or books of columnar paper in a variety of formats were used as journals of various kinds. In fact, it's still easy to find columnar paper in various formats today at Staples or on Amazon. Bills were mostly paid by mail, once or twice per month. A skilled bookkeeper or accounting technician could customize a columnar journal for almost any kind of business. Usually, that meant recording checks received in the mail and checks paid out, paying invoices by check, and depositing checks received in the mail, along with the daily cash receipts. Mostly, this was done in a special purpose journal called a synoptic or cash receipts and disbursements journal. Perhaps surprisingly, I was only ever exposed to this at work. The professional correspondence courses I had to take to earn my designation barely mentioned them. However, virtually all the small accounting offices on Vancouver Island on Canada's west coast used a synoptic journal for their small business clients. I personally worked for 4 of these small firms and later audited hundreds of files between 1985 and 1989 as an income tax auditor working for the tax department in Victoria, BC. The process was usually the same. The accounting clerk entered the checks and deposits taken from the bank statements received in the mail each month from the bank. This made sense in 1985, when fully 97% of payments were made by check according to Payments Canada.
In addition to paper-based systems used by bookkeepers in the 1980s and the first half of the 1990s, small professional accounting firms created paper-based working paper files to support the compilation of financial statements and the preparation of income tax returns. In this slide, we have tried to recreate the look of these manual working paper files. There was usually a large manila file folder, which was dominated by a working trial balance created on large, tabloid-sized columnar paper. Stuffed inside the folder were a series of smaller worksheets specifically created on columnar paper as needed to support the file.
Once the working paper file was reviewed and completed, it was typically sent to typing. The partner would get his girl to type the financials for the client meeting. Then, it was stored alphabetically in a file cabinet. Of course, today the accounting technician uses a word processor to draft the financials, and only dinosaurs still talk about getting their girl to do anything.
In 1989, a Canadian company, Caseware International, developed a computer-based replacement for accountants' manual working paper files. Pictured here is a mock-up of an old-fashioned manual working paper file, assembled from handwritten sheets on columnar paper and totaled using an electronic calculator. Next, we superimpose the working trial balance created in Caseware on top of the old-fashioned working trial balance prepared manually. The origins of a Caseware working paper file can easily be traced back to its manually prepared ancestor.
Initially, the filing system was identical. The components were printed and assembled into a manila file folder and sent to the file room for storage. Some larger firms set up a local area network to allow for file sharing within the office. A few years later, larger firms implemented file server systems to facilitate file sharing in multiple offices. While the old-fashioned paper-based systems were remarkably efficient for their time, technological change has passed them by. 1. Online banking. 2. Email communication. 3. Inexpensive commercial spreadsheet software. 4. Cloud-based document storage. In particular, the widespread use of computer spreadsheet software began to displace these journals. The advantages are obvious. A spreadsheet can have as many columns as you need. It eliminates the need for a calculator to add the columns of figures. And totals of columns can be posted to summary worksheets automatically. As we saw in Accounting 100, with online banking and tools like PayPal, even the data entry function is done for you. The accounting technician only needs to download the data into a spreadsheet program. You still need to know what you're doing, but it's a lot more efficient. Then in about 2015, Caseware introduced Caseware Cloud in Canada, a cloud-based version of their software. At the time, we had CPAs in the Philippines attempting to share working paper files. For many reasons, we found their ecosystem ineffective and overly expensive for a small firm. So around 2016, we began to develop our own Cloudware system. While Caseware's system was the first commercially successful system in Canada to attempt to automate the preparation of professional working paper files, my firm found it lacking. So, like Caseware did in 1988 or 1989, we returned to the original prototype of a manual working paper file. We then tried to recreate the process in Excel and used an industry-standard cloud content collaboration system called CITRIX SHAREFILE for the file storage and collaboration capabilities. Cloudware is a kind of a virtual sandbox for accountants preparing year ends. It was designed to replace a manual working paper file or more sophisticated working paper tools like Caseware, but is a template that works simply with Excel. Although this tool was originally designed to work with Microsoft's Excel, we have tested it with LibreOffice and Google Sheets. We haven't had any significant problems with either. Data is stored in the cloud, using a standard cloud-based file storage system called CITRIX SHAREFILE. This makes it easier for accountants working remotely to collaborate with others in the preparation of working paper files for small businesses. Once again, although we've standardized around CITRIX SHAREFILE, there are plenty of alternatives that would work just fine. A great many public accountants are familiar with a Canadian working paper tool called Caseware. We developed Cloudware to overcome some of the shortcomings we encountered working with remote staff. We found that Cloudware was not only up to the task for compilation and tax work, it provided a better learning experience for staff. In short, it's a Caseware replacement that doesn't require software other than your spreadsheet, word processor, and a cloud-based file storage application that you already have with Office 365 or Google Suite. If you prefer the Linux ecosystem, it works well with LibreOffice and whatever cloud storage system you prefer. It might even work for some large businesses, though the largest companies I've ever used it for are high-growth companies that we lovingly call unicorns. In short, it is the application of software tools that we already have to meet a simple and recurring information need that every business has. We use it as part of the Business Analyst Technician program to help new accounting technologists learn to put together and use a working trial balance and a working paper file and understand the fundamental accounting algorithm. At the same time, they learn to use VLOOKUP, SUMIF, and other functions, filtering, and how to build pivot tables within their favorite spreadsheet software.
It isn't hard to spot the resemblance to a traditional manual working paper file, which focuses on the working trial balance.
The opening balance is entered from the company's online accounting software, or simply copied from the ending balances for the prior year. Adjusting entries are recorded in a separate tab, which updates the working trial balance automatically. The technician then refreshes the pivot table, and you're ready to post to the tax software.
The best approach to learning how to put together a working paper file is just to do it. For anyone studying on their own, that means finding a business that needs to get their accounting done. It also requires an experienced technician or accountant to review your work.